Do we have Mr. Smith, Mr. Frame and Jack?
Yeah, we just have Mr. Frame, so we'll get the solicitor and the applicant into the meeting.
Okay, thanks.
I'm just trying Mr. Smith now.
Douglas, do you want me to send over to the members all the stuff in the email that you
Yeah,
sent
just
in?
give me. I didn't, because we were discussing, I didn't actually see the very final attachment. Oh no, I did. Sorry. Yeah, no, I'm fine with all of those. I mean, they're from the applicant, so I don't think that there can be any reason for them not being shared. So I'm
Good.
happy for those to be sent to members. Sorry, can you hear these literally come in this morning? I didn't actually see them until we were sitting here about a few minutes to 10 o'clock. So they just come in this morning. In fact, they were sent at 9:51 this morning. I have to say, they're only photographs, and I think there's one page from social media or a list of newspaper articles. But apart from that, there's not an awful lot of material there.
Okay, Douglas, so you can have that circulated just through the emails.
Convener, I've just spoken to Mr. Smith, the applicant for item 2, and he's advised that he's just joining now. I'm just going to G up his solicitor and make sure he's definitely joining too.
Okay, thanks.
That's the solicitor, Donna, just saying he's joining now.
Thanks, Elaine. That's the solicitor joined now, so we're just waiting on the applicant.
Do you want me to let the solicitor in just in case his client's with him?
Yeah, might as well let them all in at this stage.
Okay.
He's not with them, he confirmed he was separate.
Well, we'll start letting them in anyway, and we can get them in. Mr. McKissick, Mr. Frame, just to let you know, we're just waiting on the applicant joining. His solicitor is in the meeting, but we're just waiting on the applicant joining, okay?
Okay.
Mr. Frame, are you able to mute your microphone? Do you know how to do that? It's just been...
Yeah.
Thanks. I think Donna's on the phone to Mr. Smith, just trying to get him into the meeting, so hopefully it won't be too much longer.
Convener members, we're just trying to get Mr. Smith onto the call. He's just having issues with the joining invite. That's Mr. Smith now.
Okay, thank you, Donna. Good morning. I'm Councillor John McNaughton. I'm the convener of the board, and we're now moving on to item 2, which is the grant of a temporary public entertainment licence. And I'm just going to pass over to Douglas Campbell, who's a legal advisor to the board, and Douglas will introduce the people who have just joined us and outline the procedure that we'll be following. Douglas?
Many thanks, convener. Just to confirm those present, first of all, I can see the applicant, Mr. Smith, on the screen. Yeah, you're on mute just now, Mr. Smith, but that's fine. I can see you obviously confirmed. And your solicitor, Mr. John McKissock, is here as well, Mr. McKissock. Do you confirm, Mr. McKissock? Yeah, just make sure we hear you okay.
Yeah, connection problems. I can hear you now.
All right, thanks, Mr. McKissock. I was just identifying Mr. Smith and then yourself. And we also have Mr. Frame here today. Mr. Frame, see you on the screen. Could you just confirm you can hear me okay?
Yeah, no problem.
Thanks. This is an application for grant of a temporary public entertainment licence for the date stated on the members' agenda. The application was cited on the basis of two people, members of the public had objected, well, two parts, I should say, Mr. and Mrs. Frame and also Mr. Patrick. Mr. Patrick isn't here today, but he has produced a written submission in support of his written comments that he'd put into the application, written objection, I should say, and Mr. Frame is obviously here. Just to confirm, on the citation letter to the applicant, Mr. Smith, it indicated that his ADIP certificates and insurances were still to provide. I can advise parties present that is no longer an issue, and that has been resolved. So the only issues are at this stage the public objections. So just to explain to parties present what will happen, then I'll give a chance for any preliminary issues to be raised if appropriate. So essentially what would happen is that we'd hear normally from Mr. Frame, and then there'll be a chance for Mr. Smith, whether he speaks himself or his solicitor does the speaking for him is a matter for themselves. They would then reply to what's been said, and then it might be that the councillors would have questions to ask either of Mr. Frame or of the other, the applicant and the solicitor. And at the end of any questions, then there'll be a chance for Mr. Frame to sum up, and then a chance for Mr. Smith or Mr. McKissock to sum up. Then the board might go into a private recess. If they do that, then they'll exclude all parties present, and then they will come back on to make their decision publicly. Can I just check, first of all, Mr. Frame, this isn't the stage to speak about what's in your objection, but first of all, can you just confirm, and I'm going to bring Mr. McKissock in just a moment, are there any preliminary issues you wish to raise as an objector about procedural type matters?
No.
No. Mr. McKissock, I see you've got your hand up. Are there any preliminary issues you wish to raise at this stage?
Yes, I mean, this is an application for a temporary public entertainment licence, not a full public entertainment licence. I would have, in terms of the 1982 Act, the Civic Government Scotland Act, Schedule 1, Part 7, basically makes provision for a simplified procedure which is appropriate to a temporary public entertainment licence, whereby the only consultation is with the police and, if necessary, with the fire department. That seems to have been departed from. As far as I'm aware, there's no kind of hybrid between a full public entertainment licence and a temporary one. So I'm wondering why notices were put up and injections were invited when the Act specifically provides that for a temporary public entertainment licence, the only consultation should be with the police and the fire department.
I'm happy to answer that question, Mr. McKissock. I mean, we're familiar with the provisions of paragraph 7, and also familiar with various consultations that have happened over the years in relation to these matters. As far as the position is concerned, our view as licensed authority is that we've got a discretion to grant a temporary public entertainment licence. We're not required to do so. We are prepared to look at these applications. Members clearly want to make sure they've got sufficient information to deal with applications. We have a practice whereby we ask applicants to put a notice up. The legislation says we shall consult with the police and in appropriate cases fire. It doesn't as such exclude that if we get objections in that we have to close our eyes to them. So I suppose the board still has to consider how it exercises its discretion, and you know, clearly I think the board's view will be that we'll wish to hear from the objectors, and obviously be for you to make submissions as to what weight should be given to those. Convener, have you got is there anything you want to say in relation to that?
I think you've covered it, Douglas. I mean, the points raised are that where we have to consult, I think we go beyond the requirements of the legislation as a listening authority, and that's been our practice, and that's how we propose to hear this case. Douglas?
Is there anything else you want to say, Mr. McKissock?
We're going to bring Elaine in at this stage. Elaine?
Sorry, thanks very much, Convener. It was just to let Mr. McKissock, Mr. Frame and Mr. Smith know that there is a member of the press in the meeting, just so that they are aware of that, and that the meeting is also being recorded. Thanks.
Yeah, that's helpful. It is a public meeting, albeit online. Douglas, have you finished your preliminaries?
I didn't have anything else to say. I did ask Mr. McKissock if there's anything else he wanted to add, but we have preliminary issues at this stage.
So sorry, I've got particularly bad internet at the moment, so I did drop out. I didn't catch that. The only thing I would say is, you know, if we are going down the route of a temporary public entertainment licence, you're saying that you're using elements of a full public entertainment licence application as part of the, you know, as part of this procedure. What's that in reliance on in terms of the Act? Is it just,
Well,
I mean, it's just
yeah.
that normally it's one or the other.
Yeah, well, it's clearly a temporary application, Mr. McKissock. We're required to consult certain consultations, but I mean the council has policies on these matters as to when we'll grant a public entertainment a temporary licence. So I mean, I can't not consult, for example, the council departments we would go to as part of the process.
Of course, no, I would expect
and equally,
that.
you know, I mean, equally, I mean, if we get objections in, the board, you know, is likely to want to at least hear what people have got to say, and exercise. As the board has a discretion, it's a lot more fluid than what the full strictures are, and clearly the time limits have been relaxed in relation to dealing with this application as well. I don't think I can add very much more, Mr. McKissock. Obviously, I've said what I had to say in response to your points, and the convener's obviously made his points as well. So if that covers off the preliminary issues, Mr. McKissock, are you happy we now move on and hear from parties and deal with the application?
The only one thing I would say is that I would quite like well, I'd asked for the second email that was received. The one was received in July. Now, the initial objections were in June, but that's providing an enormous discretion from Patrick, the party Patrick, that basically had it was the 17th of July, which is over a month after their initial. It's giving them quite a lot of discretion in putting points to the you know, it's way out with you what you'd get for a full public entertainment licence, just in terms of the time they've had to formulate their objection.
Yeah, I take the point you're making, understand what you're saying about that. In fairness, Mr. McKissock, that actually was circulated to the members, so given they've had a chance to see, I'm not sure how they can really unsee that at this stage. What I would say, obviously, is there is no provision, going back to your own point, there is no provision related to temporary licences setting a time limit for any information as to what would be considered. So I think given the matter is now before members, and in any event, I think, you know, I don't know that really much can be made of that point at this time, but obviously it's open to you to say that, you know, less weight should be attached to that. Obviously there is no time limit, so it's not technically something you could consider late.
Righto.
Okay, well, I think we've covered the procedural issues, and we're now ready to move on to actually hearing the objections. Mr. Frame, would you like to address the board in support of your objection?
Just go back, at this point, do I just go back over the reasons why I'm complaining? Is that really the reasons why I'm objecting? Is that really it? So,
yes, bear in mind that the members will have seen your objections and read
obviously, where we stay at 152 is straight across the road from the temporary car park. The invasion of privacy from the noise, the generators, the loud music, the building, and the dismantling of the fun fair. That's the total, the invasion. We have to close our blinds to give ourselves some privacy, because it's straight across the road. That we were told last time, obviously we were too late to complain last year when it happened. As soon as it went up last year, we contacted the council because we didn't realise it was happening. So we were watching out for it this year, and we've duly complained. But we were told that it wouldn't happen again this year. And we've got an email on when the objection went in the 13th of June, and it was acknowledged. We were told it wouldn't happen at the same site again, but 2 days later, it did happen again. You know, on the Thursday, the objection was received on the Tuesday, and the fun fair rolled in again on the 15th of June, albeit it was a one-day licence, but obviously that one day turns into 3/4 days by the time they build and dismantle, you know, and again, it's just the noise and the disruption. And obviously, with the car park closed, it creates a tremendous overflow problem onto the main road, where it gives a lot of difficulty to in and out your driveway, and it just causes a a hazard as far as people moving across the road or getting in and out your driveway. I mean, I believe, I mean, we've stayed on Glasgow Road for almost 40 years in various houses, and we don't have a problem in general with the park, but really, I think a 14-day or a 10-day licence is totally unnecessary, especially when you've got a credit crunch in place and people are trying to trim what they're spending. I just don't think it's required at all. But the real crux of the matter is that it's a real invasion of our privacy to have it. The height and the proximity to the houses is just unnecessary. You know, I have spoken to was it Karen Anderson, and suggested other places within the park which would take it away from where they cited it before. It's still unclear where this, if you were to give it the go-ahead, where it would actually be sited, because the documents I've seen looked as if it was still going to be in the car park, but that's still unclear where it would actually be sited. I'll leave it at that. I mean, also, was it originally this fun fair for this period of time originally sited in St James's Park, where it was away from houses and dwellings as well? You know, I think that's about the height of it. Yeah, Trevor can have a smile and a laugh. There you go. We're the ones that are left with you chaps staring in at us as if we're living in a goldfish pond, you know. Okay.
Thanks, Mr. Frame. That's quite helpful and clear. I'm just going to bring in Douglas Campbell at this stage. Douglas? You're on mute, Douglas.
Sorry, apologies for that, convener. Yeah, I think just in fairness, given the points made, first of all, obviously, any other locations haven't been, you know, they're not before the board at this stage. I'm aware that there have been discussions with, you know, Karen Anderson and so forth, who I think has actually answered the point raised about, you know, the separate fun fair, which is obviously not before you today, which was for the car park area. Mr. McKissick will to speak about the application shortly, convener. Certainly, my understanding it's a grassed area further away from the road, and not actually in the car park itself, but obviously I can deal with any legal points later on arising from it, but just to confirm, I think they're, you know, in terms of the previous fun fair referred to in June, I think you know, that was responded to, Mr. Frame, was it not, from Karen Anderson? I don't think it's a matter for today if it's a different location we're dealing with.
Yeah,
No, she said it was an oversight happened, but it was just to make sure that going forward that any applications, they wouldn't be cited in the car park area. That's what yes. I was assured last year, and obviously there was an oversight on that previous application that I've referred to. It's just I'm just trying to make sure that there isn't anything going into the car park area, because obviously it causes an enormous traffic hazard, as well as a nuisance.
Okay, Mr. Frame. Thanks, Mr. Frame. Yeah, I think we will clarify that one quite quickly, because I think the members should be clear where it's been circulated, where it's been cited. And I'm not going to open it to questions at this stage. What I would like members to do is to turn to the written submission, which Mr. Patrick has put in. Now, members will have had a chance to read this with their papers, so I'm not proposing to go over that. I'm just asking to bear those objections in mind, which cover issues on the noise, the parking, and the antisocial behaviour as well. So at this stage, Councillor Graham, do you have a question?
So, convener, before you take questions, I'm just conscious you've not actually heard from Mr. McKissick yet in response. So do you want to do that before you?
I was actually. I'm just going to bring in Councillor Graham. This isn't Neil for questions on to Mr. Frame or Mr. McKissick at this stage. But if you have a procedural issue,
yeah, it is. It was just just would like some advice. I'm one of the ward councillors here, and I have spoken with Karen Anderson in the past about events in Barshaw Park, and I've also received correspondence in the past from Mr. Frame, and I'm just wondering that, if it's okay for me still to be here, or declaring a connection is enough.
I think it's a matter for yourself, Councillor Graham, to consider whether you can appropriately deal with the matter. If you have knowledge of a party, or if you have you might. I mean, we've certainly got a quorum today, Councillor Graham. You know, if it gives you comfort as well. I mean, if you feel that you've got knowledge of parties and you shouldn't be taking part, then you know you might wish to declare an interest and take no further part in the proceedings.
Yeah, I think that's a position, Neil. You can either at this stage of the meeting declare a connection and stay in the meeting and participate, or at this stage declare an interest, and actually you wouldn't be required to leave the meeting as a public meeting, but take no part in the meeting. I think that's the position.
Thank you. As I have actually spoke and made a position on this in the past and what should be done, spoken with Karen Anderson and spoken with the constituents involved. At this stage, unfortunately, as I've had an opinion, I'm just going to declare an interest and leave at this point.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Graham. That's helpful.
Apologies for that. Thank you.
No problem. Okay, we'll resume. We've heard from Mr. Frame, we've looked at Mr. Patrick's objection, and we're now going to go to Ms. McKissock. Are you going to present for the applicant?
Yes, thank you. I take it you've all got the materials that I've circulated.
Yeah, there was an email this morning at 9:51, Mr. McKissock, that's been, I think,
Yes.
sent to the members. Now, is that what you're referring to?
That's exactly what I'm referring to. Has everyone got access to that? Because I'm going to be referring to the various items there.
Yes, they should have. We've had emails.
Good. If I take things on board, obviously, Mr. Frame's main issue seemed to be privacy and parking. Seem to be the two issues, or privacy and you know, the parking that may take place on. I mean, privacy was the big thing, though. If you could go to the first number, let's see, item number 4, which I've sent through, and item number 3. Item number 3, first of all, if you could have a look at item number 3. Item number 3 is just from Google Earth. It's an image taken of as near as I could get to where the southernmost edge of the fun fair is going to be. Basically, it's about another 10-15 feet up, but because Google Earth only goes in paved areas, it's actually nearer than to Glasgow Road than it would the actual fun fair is. But you can see, just if you see an image, item number 3, there is a house directly across the road from there, and you'll see to the right, looking to the right of the picture, there's a line of mature trees there. So there's a line of mature trees which are going to the right of that house. If you look at item number 4, which I've marked 3 houses on, there's one that I've marked in green, which is that house, which is the nearest house that I could actually see, identify on Google Earth from the site of the park. So the green one is that house there. Further along is the Patrick's house. The next house is further along is the Patrick's, which is in blue, and then Mr. Frame's is yellow. So you'll see that they're actually quite some distance from the park. And I've also marked in green there a line of mature trees. So as far as I could see, there's quite a lot of, certainly if it was in the car park, it might be a different matter, but looking at the site of the actual fair and looking at where Mr. Frame's house is, there seems to be a line of mature trees between them. And a comment was made about a goldfish bowl. if you look at item number 2 that I put through, you'll see that Glasgow Road it's 2 lanes of traffic in either direction. So I mean, if you look at the scale of it, the houses are quite, the complainers' houses, to my mind, are quite distant, and they have basically mature trees, a line of mature trees between them and the park. Now, I'm not saying they won't.
That's wrong.
That will blot
That's wrong.
out entire.
You're totally wrong. I mean, all we have between us.
Mr. Frame, I can't have you interrupting, Mr. McKissick.
Okay.
Be given a chance to come back in.
Okay.
Mr. McKissick, if you'd like to carry on, can you just clarify the red line outline? Is that the site?
The red line is me outlining the site as best I could using the computer. So the red line is the site of the park, which is obviously up quite a bit from the car park. There's a BMX track, the cafe between that and the line of 3 houses there. So that's basically, just to give you an idea. I haven't actually been to the site myself. I haven't had the opportunity, but between photos 2, 3, and 4, they kind of give you an idea of the layout of it. So I mean, certainly an awful lot of fun fairs are a lot closer to houses than this particular one. In terms, I mean, the other thing is parking. Presumably, I would imagine that the issue of parking will have been dealt with by the police. I mean, if there was, I mean, parking issues from dealing in the past with the applications. You know, if there was a lot of parking offences, presumably that would have been flagged up. So I mean, there's the issues seem to be privacy, parking, which I mean, it does not seem to. I mean, it's a dual carriageway. I think they'd be limited. Certainly, there appears to be, from the Google Earth image number 2, there seems to be double yellow lines, at least on the other side of the road. I would see there'd be probably limited ability to park there. Certainly, I mean, it does appear to be 2 lines of fairly busy traffic most of the time. In terms of noise, my client is, I mean, fun fairs have some background music, that I've been acting on behalf of my client for many years, and one of the things that he's very careful about is taking sound measurements of the effect of the noise of the fair. The idea is not to create a rabble and basically get yourself get objections to yourself. The idea is basically to have some background music, and my client, as the licensee, has always been very strict about keeping this down. He has been measuring this with a decibel meter and has basically said that the idea is essentially that it will be no more than 6 decibels across the road and where the houses are, which should be the nearest house, not the complainers' houses. That basically the nearest house should be no more than 6 decibels coming from the fair at any time. The traffic noise is considerably louder than that. So I mean, if you've got traffic going in both directions, it blots out. My client has to actually wait for lulls in the traffic to use his decibel meter because of the traffic is louder than the fair. In terms of, there was some comment about generators being on after the fair had ceased operating for a day. I can confirm that that is not the case. Effectively, once the fair finishes for the evening, it finishes. There are no generators storing up electricity or doing anything, so operations cease. And I think the other thing was there was a mention about crime, and obviously, I'm assuming, or antisocial behaviour. One of the things I regularly do when I'm asked to look at an area for a client who's applying for a fair is to just simply go onto Google and put on Google the word Google the name of the site, which here Barshaw Park, and the word crime after it. And item number 5 that I've sent you through is the basically what came up in Google, and this has been, it hasn't been in any way altered, and there's obviously a couple of nasty offences that appear there. But just to give you, I mean, this is the hits in Google. This is the first page of Google. 3 of the reported antisocial incidents at Barshaw Park are the same one about a small boy in 2021 being injured by a group of other boys. There's 2 significant ones. There was 2 serious assaults, but one was from 2015 and one is from 2011. So just a kind of common sense dip into the internet, looking at, I mean, sometimes you'll Google an area where a fun fair is going to be, and there's lots of issues with use. There's lots of issues with there's lots of neighbourhood watch issues. Going up and down in Google Earth, I don't actually see there being any kind of neighbourhood watch signs or anything that are prominent. But it would seem to me that this is a very low crime area, and it's an area where, you know, that there's not been a great deal of antisocial. Usually, fairs don't bring antisocial people, but they can have an effect on antisocial elements that are already there. And I would respectfully say that in respect of Barshaw Park area, there doesn't appear to be those. Now, the last thing I would say is I think that has, I mean, the last thing is potentially my client, Mr. Smith, had made a short video of himself and the sound checks he does regarding the decibels. I don't know if you have it or if that could be played at all.
I don't think we have that, and I'm not proposing to introduce it. So carry on, Mr. McKissick.
I think that's. I mean, it would appear that the issues, I don't know, but one of the things I'm not entirely sure of is I'm assuming the car park area will be open to the visitors to the fun fair that are going there.
That's not really for you to ask the questions on that, Mr. McKissick.
Yes, right.
You're just putting your case forward, and the members will have questions for you.
Well, I suppose to summate, I would respectfully suggest that there's not a significant privacy issue. There doesn't appear to be any police comments regarding misuse of parking. My client is very careful about monitoring the sound, the amount of noise coming off, because clearly he doesn't want complaints. He wants to do, I know that the complainer mentioned about the credit crunch, but these people have to earn their livelihood for this. He does not want there to be complaints. He wants it to go, he wants it basically to be welcome back in forthcoming years. And finally, it does not seem to be an area where there's going to be any antisocial behaviour, in my opinion. Just it does not give me the flavour of being the sort of area where you're going to get many problems from the fair operating.
Okay, thank you, Mr. McKissick. Before I open it to questions from members, I'm just going to give Mr. Frame. You wanted to come back on something, Mr. Frame?
Well, you said that there was mature trees between us and Google Earth. All we have is a beech hedge, which is the perimeter of the park. If you've taken the time to actually visit the site, you would see that for yourself. There is only a beech hedge between us and where the caravans and the fun fair were sited. And I presume the generators running 24 hours a day were supplying the electricity to the caravans where the people were staying that were working at the fun fair. So there is a loss of privacy, and there's no getting away from it. You know, the mature trees are further back, further towards the centre of the park. Again, anyone who knows the park would know where the mature trees are. There is none on the perimeter of the park. There's mature trees further up, going towards Glasgow, but not going towards Paisley, which is, again, I'm still unclear where the siting is proposed for, because we were just saying it's a grassed area, but there's obviously plenty of grassed areas Is it further into the park, or is it further towards Glasgow, the Glasgow side of the park? Or
Okay, Mr. Frame, can I just ask, do you have access to the photographs that the members have just been given this morning?
No, I wasn't given access to that.
Sorry, convener. I mean, in the course of the hearing, I think they were sent to Mr. because it's clearly open source information and photographs from Google. So I mean, in fairness to parties, to allow everyone to see what was the position, I think Elaine actually sent them on.
I'd sent over again Google Earth things over to Karen Anderson when she'd said about they were still looking at, because obviously the original application had put it at the car park. And then she said, no, it shouldn't be there. And I'd suggested other places where it could be. I'd sent over, like Mr. McKissick had suggested, I'd sent over some Google Earth pictures and outlined where I thought it might be able to go, where it wasn't in proximity to other houses, either on this side of the park or on the other side of the park.
Okay, Mr. Frame. I think all I was trying to establish was whether you'd actually seen what we the members have in front of us.
Well, I
think it has been sent to you. You might want to open your emails because it's quite clear from that where the proposed issue is, and I think members are clear.
There isn't any.
Maybe ask Elaine to have a look at that. And
I've got one where it looks as if it's actually where I'd suggested, which is at the back, beyond the back of the hill, where it if that's the one that is running along the back between the golf course and the bottom of the hill. And
yeah, it is. It's quite clear to members where it lies. It's
like a blue felt tip pen.
Well, depending on which of the images you open was one.
I've only got the one image. In fact, it might actually be the image that I said. Don't appear to have.
But
Mr. Frame, I sent you over an email at 10:45 this morning. So 10 minutes ago, I sent you an email which had all the enclosures that Mr. McKissick provided to us just before the meeting.
Okay, whilst you're looking for that, Mr. Frame, I'm not yet opening to members' questions. Mr. Smith, did you want to contribute?
Yes, if that's allowed. Am I allowed to talk? Yeah.
Yes, carry on.
All right. Just a couple of quick explanations. Last year, there was no antisocial. I've run fairgrounds all my life. I know what antisocial behaviour is all about. And there wasn't the type of people that came to the fairground. I don't cater for that type of people. There was 3 roundabouts, a twist ride, a dodgems ride, and a waltzer ride. I'm very conscious about the music, and I've had to run fairgrounds before in the past with no music at all. I'm prepared to go ahead and do that with this fair. This fair was put in the car park at the last minute last year because of the clearing of the pond, which I'm sure some of you are aware did happen. This year, the fairground is moving onto the grassed area across the road from the car park. If I could just show you this on the camera, you might get an idea. Can you see that okay there? Can you see the outlined in red there, right across from the car park?
Yes, well, I can see it, and I think it also confirms what we saw from Mr. McKissick.
Yeah, so the fairground's moving out the car park across the road, and yes, anybody can use the car park. There's no update on the gate of the park or that says what you're here for. Are you here to go to the fairground? Are you here to go to the cafe? Are you here to use the golf? Are you here to walk around the pond? Visitors are allowed to come in that park. And the majority of visitors, I will say, are very nice people. They're all families. If you were to look at my short video that I did send in by email to Aileen and the people that's been handling it, you will see it's all children and mums and dads. There's no call for, like you would have seen maybe on the Glasgow Green years ago, where you had this gang or that gang. This fair doesn't, it's not big enough and doesn't cater for that kind of thing. Howsoever, I'm out to earn a living just like anyone else. That is my living is operating fairgrounds and running fairgrounds. I don't have no other business. If this licence is not granted, I will be closed down for them 2 weeks. I am a person that you can come and talk to if Mr. Douglas, Mr. Frame rather, would have came over the fairground. But I went along them houses with a decibel meter, and my past experience with environmental over the noise of the music is outside of a house is 6 decibels is outside environment. However, in amongst me doing them at Burnt Island Fairground, at the Kirkcaldy Links Market in the past, at my own fairgrounds, at Airdrie, at Coatbridge, at Rutherglen, at Cambuslang, and all the fairs that I've run over a many, many number of years, I know that fairground operations, you must, especially the microphones. So we just cancelled microphones at that fairground. I'm very well aware of that. What I think for the amount of houses right down the Glasgow Road there, to have 2 complaints is very good. Now, what I was smiling about, and I got into trouble for earlier on, was the fairground at St James's Park was mentioned, which my last application for that fairground had 12 complaints from the houses, 1 from the community council and 1 from the police. When we went to the licensing council in 2010 for that, we still got that licence. We explained a lot of things and what we would do, and we put in place a whole load of... So my fair at that park went ahead without problem. The reason that you can't have that park for a fairground anymore was it was handed over to the contractor for the train link to get put in. I don't know if any of you will remember that. And that kind of scooped the fairground in the St James's Park. And amongst all that time of trying to get another site, we basically managed to get Barshaw Park. Now, Barshaw Park, the fairground last year, was meant to be on the grass, and as I've explained, through them taking all the stuff out of the pond and everything and clearing the pond out, we ended up putting the small fairground in the car park. This year, we do understand that that's not reasonable to do that, because you're taking up the car parking spaces, and maybe some people are parking on the road. I didn't notice it myself, but it's a possibility that that was happening. Howsoever, to overcome that situation and that problem, the fairground should have been on the grass in the first instance anyways, out of the car park, and that is exactly what's happening this year. But it's only a very small fairground. And if it comes to it and you want central music or no music, central music is where all the same music got played like it did last year, and it's the same music that comes out. My dodgems, people will tell you, I get too many businessmen and that coming to see me, so I turn the music off so I can talk to them, and the customers still go on and off. Do you understand me? So that is a thing that does happen generally. Howsoever, if it comes to the bit where the music is the one that's stopping the fairground from going ahead, then I would be proposing to say, we'll run the fair with no music, which I've had to do at Hamilton before in the main street. And after a while, the people from Stanister Park at Hamilton came across and says, this is not fair what we've done to you. You're operating your fair without music. I says, well, that's what you put forward at the meeting, and I had to go along with that. And they says, no, we want you. So they went back to the council again, and now I get the licence and get to have background music at the fairground at Hamilton, which I'm operating this weekend at Hamilton Pride. I've just got the licence. Here it is here from South Lanarkshire Council, and I'm allowed to play music, background music, because it's a big event that they're having in Hamilton. So I've occurred these problems over my lifetime for a long, long time, and how to overcome them. Sometimes if it's not reasonable, you know, I know, but this time it's reasonable to say that the fairground could go ahead and we can overcome these problems and we can put things in place. As far as the generators running all night goes, I stay on site with my wife in my caravan. At any fairground, we look after our stuff. We need to be there to look after it, to be seen to be looking after it as well. We have a small portable generator that's, if you walk 20 paces away from it, you can't hear it. And it's one of them that you would use in any caravan park. That, you know, runs till probably 11:30 or something at night. You can't hear it across the road. I check all these things out. I go out to check these things and make sure this is not happening and you're not upsetting the people that live round about, because after all, that is their territory. It's not mine, is it? I'm coming in with a fairground. I'm the one that wants to have a good rapport and come back to these places and not burn my bridges and make sure these fairs go ahead every year. So me and all my other fellow members of the Showman's Guild has got somewhere to go and operate their equipment and get in their living. And I do sympathise with Mr. Frame, but I must have to say that the hedge next to that car park is a good 10 foot high, and I couldn't see through the hedge to your houses. So I don't understand that bit of it, whether they're mature hedges or trees or not. That hedge is definitely there and it's very, very high. And when you drove by the park on the Glasgow Road, you could hardly see the fairground for the hedge. You could only see the top of the Dodgem ride and the top of the Walser ride, the actual rounding boards. You couldn't see the fairground. Howsoever, if the fairground moves across the road, then that kind of extinguishes that. You know, that's that problem is overcome, and so's the parking problem. As far as antisociable behaviour goes, I can't believe that has been said, and I must say that. And if the police, I don't know if the police is on the meeting or not, but I don't think they would have anything at the time that I was there to say there was any incidents at all. And the other thing that I would like to know was that anybody got in contact with the environmental health to say that the music was too loud at the fairground or the noise from the fairground was too loud? Because from what I could make of it with my decibel meter walking along the front of the houses, which I do have videos of, when the traffic passes, it completely drowns the noise, everything else out, and the decibel meter jumps up to 7.6 and all that. When it's quiet and the fairground was operating, the decibel meter was running at 5.7 and 5.8 and 6.1, which is very, very good. That's outside environment for anywhere. That is a law. In any event, I would like Mr. Frame and Mr. Patrick to come over at the fairground and tell me their issues, and I will have them steadfastly sorted, because that's my living. And I'll finish up at that for the moment. If anybody wants to ask any questions on that, feel free to do so, and I'll try and get my wee yellow hand to go down as well.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Smith, for your contribution. Right, we're open to questions now for from the councillors. Councillor Hughes first.
Thanks, convener. I apologise, I was muted there. It's a question for Mr. Frame. Mr. Frame, first of all, I just want to check that it was clear to you on that image where the site, the proposed site is, because I'm going to ask you a question about that, so I need to know that you've seen it.
Yeah, it's just. I think they're proposing it's just on the other side of the footpath. Is where where they're proposing to put it now. I've just received an email in from Elaine Curry. With the attachments all there. I just had a quick look at it. So yeah, I know.
Okay, okay, that's good. So you've seen that. Okay, so does that improve things for you in terms of positioning? It certainly, but I mean, I assume you think it would alleviate the parking, but in terms of things like the noise and you being able to see it, do you feel that's an improvement?
It's better than what it was last year, because last year was just an absolute nightmare, because it was hard up against the hedge, and it was. Obviously, the structure itself is higher than the hedge. You know, you've got the building and the dismantling, and it's obviously 10 days, which turns into 13/14 by the time it's taken up and put down. But it's still, I don't see that it's necessary. You know, fun fairs come in for a day. A 10-day license just seems totally over the top.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Frame.
Councillor McKeown.
Thank you. Mr. Frame, if I could ask you, please, Mr. McKissock, and so has Mr. Smith stated that they would monitor the noise and they would make sure that it was no louder, and that's what I'm picking up, than the very busy road that you live on. And that's Glasgow Road. I know the road well, Mr. Frame, and I do travel to the park a lot. So I just wonder what your thoughts are on that. I mean, that's important, that.
I think at the end of the day, a lot of it's lip service, whether or not. I mean, I'm sitting here at the front of the house at the moment, and the noise from the traffic is negligible. You know, most times of the day. It's not an issue at all. Traffic noise isn't an issue. Peak times, yes, you can hear the buses and stuff going up and down the road. But I've stayed on Glasgow Road for the best part of 25 years, and traffic noise to me isn't an issue. You know, a fun fair coming in for 10 slash more is an issue, because it does, even with the best will in the world, if you get really good weather, you know yourself, the overflow car park, even without a fun fair in it, overflows onto the main road, and it does become hazardous and it becomes problematic. You know, it's just unnecessary in my view, regardless of how they try to dress it up and say, well, they'll stop, they won't play music, or they won't do this, or they won't do that. It's unnecessary. It really is.
Right, okay, thank you, Mr. Frame.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks. I don't see any other questions. I think at this stage we'll move to a summing up. Mr. Frame, would you like to sum up?
I don't think there's really much more to say. I think it's all been said. You know, I think I'll just pass it over to you chaps to have your vote and take it.
The procedure, what we're going to be doing, I'm just going to give Mr. McKizzard an opportunity to sum up. Then we'll be taking a break, and I'll ask all parties to leave the meeting, at which stage, you know, the members will discuss the issue, take our legal advice. We will reconvene and bring everybody back into the meeting, at which stage we'll take a decision on the matter.
If I bet anything, it was this. Why has it started now, where we didn't have a fun fair at this time of the year for this length of time ever before? I mean, we've obviously been here for 25 years. We've never had a fun fair that lasted this length of time before within the park.
Okay, Mr. Frame, it's not really a question for the members. We're sitting in as a regulatory functions board to determine the application. Mr. Smith, did you want to contribute?
Yes, I do, yes. Last year, the fairground was open no later than 7:30 and 8 o'clock, because after that time, there's no customers. We only work off the people that come into the park. There is one more thing about the why the fair's there. That's the end of the Paisley holiday, so I catch the last week of the Paisley holiday. The next week, we wasn't really open through the week. It was mainly the weekend that we was opened, Saturday and Sunday. There was days we was closed all day. We opened on Monday, all day, closed all day. When it rains in a park like that, the fairground shut with the park. On the Tuesday and the Thursday, the fairground was closed all day. We opened Monday and Wednesday and Friday through the week of the second week of the fair. 2 days we completely lost. Now, the thing is, when you lose at a fairground, I must tell you this, when you lose days like that at a fairground, like on the Glasgow Green when they moved us onto the grass bit, or any nice grassy park that you're in, nobody comes in a grassy park when it's raining. Customers don't come out. It's raining. We don't open the fairground. It stays closed. So we lost 2 full days there last year at Paisley. And that can happen. And that's why sometimes you take 2 weeks at a fair. But the main thing about that fairground is, just like St James's Park, it was there for the Paisley holiday. And the Paisley holiday always fell right after the Glasgow Fair holiday. So years and years ago, the fairground would always move from the Glasgow Green, and the majority of the fairground went down to Paisley to St James's Park, which is not available anymore. And there is, I mean, the next best location. And the fairground is only not a quarter of the size of the fair that was in St James's Park. When I took my dodgems to St James's Park over 20 years ago, there was 8 or 9 adult rides. There were 2 bingos. There were a full row of side stalls. There were a full row of centre stalls. There must have been 50 pieces of equipment. Now we're down to 8 or 10 pieces of equipment. 8, I think it is. That's on that licence, pieces of equipment, including the waltzer, the dodgem, the twist ride, the big slide, the convoy, the bouncy slide, and a couple of a set of aeroplanes in my kiddie ride. That's what's at that fairground. And it wouldn't bother me to run it with no music. People would still go on the rides and everything. I would still probably earn a good enough living out of that without any music at all. And as far as antisocial behaviour is concerned, I'm absolutely gobsmacked that has been mentioned, because I couldn't believe the difference of Barshaw Park as to opening in St James's Park. That is an incredible difference, I must say. with the kind of people that comes to the park. I mean, people was absolutely, thank you very much, that's great. I've seen different other things happen at fairgrounds, and I can't believe that that's been mentioned. I must say that. Howsoever.
Okay, thanks, Mr. Smith. Okay, I'm just going to return to Mr. Frame because we've just heard additional information. This is your chance to sum up again. Mr. Frame, is there anything else you want to say in summing up?
No, I'm fine. I'm okay.
Okay, Mr. McIsaac, would you like to sum up?
Firstly, if I disappear, I've got a very bad connection. So if I've been ignoring you, if I've not been moving, it's due to that. Just, I mean, I think it's fair. A very cogent point that Mr. Smith has raised, that basically the fun fair won't operate on days when there's bad weather. My understanding is that, you know, it's a shockingly small number of sunny days that showmen get to operate fun fairs in Scotland. You know, the number of really nice sunny days. I know in the past I've had figures quoted that, you know, they get 28, they get 35 really good days in a year. So I suppose that Mr. Frame's been asking why it's needed. I mean, it's needed because people enjoy going to fairs. It's an entertainment like any other entertainment. You could ask why the football's needed. I mean, it's if people are going and they enjoy it, it's I think it's something that shouldn't be denied to the people who attend. I would take issue about the scale. I mean, it's obviously there's a beech hedge there, but I mean they look fairly mature trees, and I was making a very honest attempt at trying to show the site, how the site impacts on the actual road. My item number 3, that the only all of the properties that lie to the right of that are totally, you cannot be seen for foliage. And as far as I can see, that the image there was from the car park as near as the southwest boundary of the fair site to maximise, to show effectively the full impact of where it would be. Now, the house that's shown in image number 3 is the one that's outlined in green in image number 4, which is 1, 2, 3, 5 along the Mr. Frame's house is 5 along from that. So it does seem to be well within, I would say, if not the most, if not, I mean, they look like trees to me, but certainly mature foliage.
Okay, thanks, Mr. McIsaac. I think we've covered the summing up. So we're going to take a brief recess just now.
Sorry, I've cut out there. I'm sorry about that.
Sorry, Mr. McIsaac, I thought you'd finished. You carry on.
No, sorry. The internet connection in city centre of Glasgow, trying to get internet is murder. But the basic thing is, I'm sure if parking was a significant problem, it would have been flagged up with the police. Mr. Smith is a conscientious chap in terms of monitoring the noise. I mean, I would say that there's not going, from my own point of view, I would like everyone to accept that essentially that this is going to be a low impact fair compared to many fairs held in the Glasgow and Paisley areas in terms of noise, in terms of disruption, and in terms of potential antisocial behaviour. And I suppose that's all I have to say. And thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. McIsaac. We're going to take a brief recess at this stage. So I'm going to ask all of the parties to leave the meeting. Stay by your phone. The officers will contact you again shortly to rejoin the meeting. And at that stage, the members will reconvene and we will take a decision on the matter. And
thank you.
Okay, could I ask also the press, if you press could leave for the recess? Somebody can confirm when we're clear.
I'm just looking at that now, and I think we'll just stop the recording just now.
Yes,
Let the
thanks.
recording stop.